Welcome to Bite-Sized Bios. This is meant to be a mini-sode that will accompany HDTH. Every week, I will pick a person from history and dive into their lives. All right, welcome back to another episode of Bite-Sized Bios, BSB. This is the mini-sode accompaniment to How Did That Happen? This is episode number 27 of Bite-Sized Bios. Coming up to number 30 pretty quick. This week we're doing John Cena. John Cena's who we're going to get to. But before we get there, as I already said, this is the mini-sode for How Did That Happen? So we always kind of go back and talk about the previous episode to see some things I may have missed, maybe some corrections. Just sometimes the subject matter is too dense to get to in one sitting. I have to kind of let it rest for a second, come back, and then rehash. So last week we talked about the Amish. People, and I learned a lot. First thing I learned, I'll tell you, I'm not ashamed to say, I didn't know that they were Christians. I didn't know that they were Christians. They're just like, not just like, but we all follow Jesus. I didn't know that. That was new to me. We talked about a lot of different stuff with them. One thing that I think we didn't fully get to, or I didn't really have too much information on, is their language. I know I played some of their language in the beginning of the episode, and that was actually a clip from some Amish people that live in Blacksburg, Virginia. But the main Amish, they speak, I guess what they call, I don't know, they call it Low Dutch is what it's called. Lower German, excuse me. So it's Dutch or Lower German, which is kind of a German Swiss English mush of language, and that's why you can kind of hear things you understand every now and then, but then it just kind of goes out. But yeah, they kind of do a mixture of that. Pretty much, I mean, I think most Amish probably talk in that sort of with that language. But they also, another interesting thing about the Amish, they celebrate Old Christmas. I didn't know that was actually a thing. I learned that not too long ago. Old Christmas, I believe, is January 6th. And it follows in the same idea of the 12 days of Christmas. This is where we get the idea of the 12 days of Christmas. They celebrate Christmas on the day that the wise men showed up at the manger. Right? So that's an interesting fact. I didn't know, A, that Old Christmas existed. And I didn't know, B, that the Amish also celebrate that. And it all puts the 12 days of Christmas in perspective for me. One last thing I want to talk about the Amish before we get on to the other parts of this show here is I mentioned a little bit before we left the last time about their, like, if you go in every Amish person's house, you'll find the Bible, the Holy Bible, and you'll find another book right beside it normally, and it's called the Martyr's Mirror. And I wanted to go a little bit more in depth about what a Martyr's Mirror actually is, and it's actually pretty wild. So this book, how do I put this? It's, first of all, the title of it is not just a Martyr's Mirror. The title is called The Bloody Theater. No, excuse me. Let me run that back. The Bloody Theater. Here we go. One more time. The Bloody Theater, or Marty's Mirror, of the defenseless Christians who baptized only upon confession of faith and who suffered and died for the testimony of Jesus, their Savior, from the time of Christ to the year AD 1660. That's the title. So you see why they just kind of go with Martyr's Mirror. That's probably the longest title of anything I've ever heard of in my entire life. But that's the actual title of it, and it was first published in Holland in 1660 by a man named Tieleman J. Venbra. And basically, it documents the stories and testimonies of Christian martyrs that were usually the Anabaptists, and their whole kind of thing about becoming the Amish and becoming the Mennonites, really, because when we talked about this, it's really interesting when you really figure out all the different ins and outs and reasons why people do things in their religion, like even down to the fact that the Amish people don't have churches because they just practice, or the way they do it is they just kind of go from house to house, and everyone passes, you take turns hosting a church service. That's how it works. They don't have churches, and this is because they were bad. They were kind of pushed away from the main land of where all the regular Christians were, and they were pushed into the Swiss mountains where they had to kind of survive, where they were going to be killed by their Christian brethren. All because they kind of believe different parts or believe different things about the same text. When you really break it down, that's all it really is. But so because of that, they couldn't build churches out there. They had to just have church wherever they could, and that's why even now they don't have churches, because they didn't have churches 500 years ago. But that's what's in the Martyr's Mirror. I've never heard that in my entire life. I've heard a lot of things about Amish people. I thought that was really cool that everybody in that religion has a book that dates back 400 years and has the whole text of how your religion came to be and the people that got killed for it, and it's pretty cool. Sad, but cool. And it's usually given as a wedding gift. That's how most people get them. When you when you go off and you live your life, it's like, here's your One more time, we're going to run that title back one more time, and then we're going to move on because I'm just so enamored with how long it is. You're going to get, when you get married, you're going to get the bloody theater of martyrs' mirror of the defenseless Christians who baptized only upon confession of faith and who suffered and died for the testimony of Jesus, their Savior, from the time of Christ to the year AD 1660. You're going to get that on your wedding day. But yeah, I mean, that's just pretty wild. It's why we do the mini episode here, because I mean, I couldn't, when we're talking for that long, there's so much information. It's hard to get everything in, you know, but there's always more, and that's why I'm trying to give you guys more. That's why I think we're taking the time here. I hope you guys think we're getting more information with the new podcast format, but definitely the Amish were very interesting last week. And so before we get to the actual episode, like I said, so now since we're doing the bite-sized bios every 2 weeks, then I'm started to put in the what am I watching and the what am I listening to in every episode now. So what am I watching right now? I just watched Cocaine Bear on Peacock. I went into this one pretty skeptical, have to say, because just the idea of it, you know, what if a bear was on cocaine? Oh, wow. But it was, you know, it was pretty decent, I have to say. It probably won't win any Oscars, but it didn't take itself too seriously, and it told a story. You can't ask much more from a movie for that. You know, it's a little gory in like a slasher film sort of way, a lot of body parts, a lot of blood splatter, stuff like that. But I liked it. It was funny too. There were some genuine laugh out loud moments that I was not expecting, and that's always fun. And then what am I listening to? I'll tell you what, I'll actually do a little bit of a throwback to the original focus of this segment when I first put it into the How Did That Happen. Initially it was called, if you've been listening for a while, it was called What Am I Reading? And so what am I reading right now? I am reading Hunter Biden's memoir. I'm having trouble with words right now. It's called Beautiful Things, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's very interesting to hear his side of the story after he was basically a walking headline for the last few years. To hear kind of from his mouth, the old horse's mouth. He really digs into it. He really goes, you know, for the gold, if you will. He talks about his addictions, crack and alcohol. The man literally admits to cooking crack in the book. He says he did it in a hotel. I forget the hotel, but I was amazed by that. Like, that's a whole another level of, that's a very like proprietor level of your addiction. It's like if you just loved alcohol so much you just started making liquor. Like you're just making crack. He also talks about, you know, the weird nature of getting with your brother's widow, which I think is, you know, is worth discussing. It's worth a read though. It's only about 260 pages, so I'm about halfway through it right now. Definitely, if you guys are looking for a quick read, I would, you know, go over and check that out. I'm reading at the library, but yeah, no, pretty good. And before I start to ramble, you know, as I normally do, without further ado, here is the episode. And that, what you heard there, was the musical stylings of John Cena, who we'll be talking about this week. We'll be getting into more of his rapping and musical stylings a little bit later, or at least talking about the persona that has kind of created the person he needed to be to make those rap songs. But that was definitely, I mean, I'm impressed by that. I was impressed by that. I think that album went platinum. How many people can say they have a platinum album? You know, not many. So we will find. John Cena is a very multifaceted individual. He contains multitudes, if you will. I'm surprised by that just a little bit, only because I think I didn't know that much about him before this. I thought, you know, he's just the wrestler. I've been able to watch him for most of my life and watch the evolution of him and see him become what he is now, an actor and all this stuff. And I don't know, I guess I'll say I never saw it coming, but who's that for me to say? So yeah, we'll get into his early life to start. John Cena was born in West Newbury, Massachusetts on April 23rd, 1977. His mom was named Carol, and his dad was named John Joseph Cena. His mother is English and French Canadian, while his father is, they don't mention he's Italian, and used to be a former ring announcer for chaotic wrestling. That's pretty cool. So wrestling was always in the blood. Cena attended Central Catholic High School in Lawrence, Massachusetts, before transferring to Cushing Academy, a private prep boarding school in Ashburnham, Massachusetts. There's a lot of different type of words in that last sentence I just read there. Pretty interesting. So then he attended Springfield College in Springfield, Massachusetts, where he played Division III football, he was the center and the captain of the football team, and he wore number 54. When he left college, initially I think he wanted to be a bodybuilder, and he ended up traveling out to California to try to become that. And he did it for a little while, I think, and then ended up not working out for him, and he kind of got into the pro wrestling kind of circuit. And so he would end up, I think he first appeared in 1999. I think it was his first actual like appearance in any sort of professional wrestling or amateur wrestling, anything like that. It was in the Ohio Valley Wrestling Organization, which was essentially the WWE's minor league system. And his initial name was the Prototype. He was a semi-robotic character, and that just sounds like not that awesome. But you got to start somewhere, and he would actually have his first WWE debut in 2002. And this was because, basically, I guess after Stone Cold Steve Austin had kind of left and The Rock was gone, so they had to revamp the entire WWE feel. And what we'll find is, like I said, I didn't know much about John Cena. Like I said before this, I'd watched this wrestling stuff when I was a kid, but I'll be honest, just the way that I viewed it through my lens, when we found out that pro wrestling was staged, if you will, it took something out of it for me. So I kind of stopped watching. So I really only watched pro wrestling up until I was probably like 9 or 10. So I didn't know. All I knew was just these guys through the eyes of a child. Just that, you know what I mean. So I didn't know all the different costumes and titles, names this guy had fought under throughout, his time at. So he wasn't always what he became known as. I say that just to say that's my understanding of it, so you can understand where I'm coming from while I'm talking about it. So basically, in 2002, when he makes his debut, there are a bunch of other people out there at the same time. There are people like Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, other people like that, Batista. And so basically he would leave Ohio Valley and come to WWE. And this was on June 27, 2002, during an episode of SmackDown. And he accepted an open challenge by Kurt Angle. And this is basically where I think the world kind of becomes introduced to John Cena. After the match, he was congratulated by Billy Kidman, Rikishi, The Undertaker, and a few others, and kind of became a part of the group. And now this is the next part. I didn't even know, like I said, I'm so far out of it, honestly, guys. I didn't know that his character was a character. Like the John Cena you see with the wristbands and like the jean shorts and the jerseys and everything. I knew it was I don't know. I guess I don't know. I don't know much about it enough to say that I knew what I knew, I guess. But it has a name. His character has a name. It is Doctor of Thugonomics. And at first glance, you have to parse through and like, is it racist? Is there some racism in here? Am I smelling something? I'm not sure what I'm not sure what The Rock is cooking. I don't know what Doctor of Thugonomics is cooking either. But I really do believe this guy committed to a character and held to it for a long time. And he's actually no longer since doing the Doctor of Thugonomics thing anymore. But this is what kind of made him who he is. And I think it's pretty genuine when you look at it. He made an album, like I said, that went platinum, and he was able to kind of take this and kind of make it his own. I actually have a little bit of a clip from an interview where he talks about where it all kind of came from and how it kind of got created. So I'll let him explain it a little better than me.
On the tour bus overseas, they travel us all together, and some of the guys are freestyle in the back. So I just went in the back and waited for my turn and joined in and just did the best I could
and ripped
and just tried to unleash the fury.
Cut it out. Everybody. You ripped.
And the front of the bus was Stephanie McMahon, and she was head of the writing team.
McMahon's daughter.
Yep, head of the writing team at the time. And she was like, "How did you remember all that?" And I kind of explained to her the concept of freestyle, and she's like, "Well, make something up about me right now." Sure enough, on the spot, I'd spit a few bars, and she's like, "Do you want to do that on TV?" Yes, please.
Yes.
And it just so happened to be the Halloween episode of SmackDown.
Oh, wow.
So the character shift wasn't like, well, why is he doing that? It started as a costume and then just kind of went into that.
Wow. What did you wear
accident.
when you did it on Halloween?
A crazy sequence Vanilla Ice outfit with a huge Vanilla Ice wig. They were trying to get me to look cool. I'm like, no, I want to look ridiculous because I want to stand out.
So we see here, yeah, he was. It happened kind of by chance, I guess. He was rapping in the back of that bus. Ed McMahon's daughter or whatever, she heard him rap, and then it was the rest is history as far as like him kind of creating that character. Who knew that there's actually a story behind it? That's why we do this stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. And so yeah, the actual Halloween themed episode he was talking about was October 26th. Yeah, it was October 26th, and he comes out dressing like Vanilla Ice and starts to freestyle, and the rest is history, pretty much. It is I'm just glad to know that there was a rhyme to his reason, no pun intended. But yeah, I mean, he would go on from that. He would be in the WWE for a while, and he would end up starting to rap. He would kind of follow the same trajectory, kind of, as The Rock. I feel like a lot of these guys were trying to take what The Rock was doing and double down on it. His first role in a movie was uncredited in the movie Royal Rumble in the year 2000. 6 years later, he would actually star in a movie called The Marine. And a lot like The Rock's movies when they first started, these movies were not that good. They just weren't that good. Like, I mean, I love Walking Tall. Like, I'll watch it sometimes because just for like nostalgia purposes. But to really call it a good movie is really gonna. It just makes it just. I don't think that's true. But yeah, so The Marine would mark his kind of beginning of his real film career. He would then go on to star in other movies. He was in the Fred movie in 2010. He was also in Trainwreck in 2015. He's done a bunch of different things. We actually have another part at the end where I'll tell you what he's doing right now, in which we talk about the current movies that he's in. But before we get to that, he's done a lot with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's granted over 650 wishes for children with life-threatening illnesses, which is pretty cool. He's been doing this for over 20 years now, and he holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the most amount of Make-A-Wishes that have been granted. And the guy second place behind him is he's like 400 wishes ahead of that guy. So that's pretty wild. And if you want to learn more about the Guinness Book of World Records, we have already done an episode on how did that happen on the Guinness Book. This is probably at least a year ago. I'm not even sure what episode it was. Maybe in the 30s or 40s. But check it out. Cena resides in Land O'Lakes, Florida. He said a bunch of times he doesn't want to have kids because he doesn't want to be an absentee parent. He is married to a woman named Sharia Sadeh. That's definitely not how her name is pronounced, but they got married in 2019 in a private ceremony in Tampa. They met while he was filming the movie Playing with Fire, which I've never seen, but I want to see. And now if you want to go back, you can know that there was a little bit of love sparked on the set of that movie. Let's see, and what has he done lately? He came back to the WWE in 2023, right? And he would also be in the next Fast and the Furious, which comes out in May. And he's also doing an Apple TV movie called Argyle with him and Samuel L. Jackson. So that's how far he's come. From the Doctor of Thugonomics, starring opposite Samuel L. Jackson in an Apple TV streaming movie coming to you in a TV near you. In addition, one last thing before we get out of here about John Cena. This man, like I said, this guy is multifaceted. We just mentioned this man has a platinum album. He's a WWE superstar. He's a movie star, right? He holds the Guinness Book for the most made wishes for children in the history of made wishes. This guy's a genie, right? And get this, he also writes children's books. I mean, what can this man not do? I obviously have children, but I mean, he writes children's books. So, I mean, let's see, what are the names of them? He has one called Elbow Grease. I love it. Elbow Grease is interestingly described as a not-so-perfect character who is always honest with himself. Love it. Cena has gone on and shared that Elbow Grease's strength is gumption and the ability to just focus and work hard. That's what is that like? I'm getting Batman. Like my superpower is I don't really have one. But yeah, so that I think it's the only one that I have here as far as his children's book. I've always wanted to write a children's book as well. I think it's harder than you think it is, but John Cena has climbed that mountain. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Bite Size Bios. Learned a lot about John Cena. He's a very interesting individual. Like I said, dude has done so much. I mean, you go from being a wrestling superstar to an actor, and helping these kids and Make-A-Wish to you're a rapper and you do children's books. It's I don't think he gets enough credit for being as I don't know, just being all in as he is. I mean, the guy even learned Chinese. I didn't put that in there, but he learned Chinese because I guess the WWE was like expanding into like China. So the man learned another language. But yeah, very interesting guy. As always, if you like what you heard here, give us a like and subscribe wherever you're finding this. 5 stars if you loved it. 2 stars if you didn't love it. Tell us why you didn't love it, because constructive criticism is always welcome. We thank you guys for coming back week to week, press and play. I will say it was earlier this week I saw somebody really binge some stuff, so I really appreciate that. Always, all the likes and subscribes help us move up a little bit and help people kind of know about the podcast more, so they can also find out how things happen in these bite-sized bios here. As always, 7 days a week over at htghappen.com. We have all the extras. You'll find the works cited. videos and stuff like that go along with the episode. On the Twitter and Instagram, the socials are pretty much all the same as well. It's at HTT Happen over there. I will say, you guys, I'm trying to work on another show to come out. I'm not sure when it will come out, but we'll give you more information as I figure it out. I'll just guess, like I said, I've always said there'll be more stuff coming with How Did That Happen. The How Did That Happen is the umbrella for a lot of things, for a lot of different topics I want to try to get out and talk about with you guys. But I think that's about it for right now. As always, like I said, thank you guys for pressing play, and we'll see you in a couple days, we'll see you next week with the next How Did That Happen. Oh, and before we leave, because that John Cena album was so fire, we're going to let him play us out today. We're going to have a little bit of John Cena, rap god here, is going to play us on out before we get to the next How Did That Happen.
So you hear those, you finish a soldier, and I stay under you fighting, plus I'm storming on you chumps like I'm thunder and lightning. Ain't no way you breaking me, kid. I'm hard as nails, plus I keep it on lock like I'm part of the jail. I'm slaughtering